I'd ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get to official business, I'll just make a general announcement, and I believe this is referenced on the town website, but just in case someone hasn't seen it, there's going to be a benefit for 2 town employees who are out on long-term disability, Mark Casper and Marty Payne. It's a pig roast and a raffle with live entertainment. It'll be at the Templeton Fish and Game Club, October 12th, 2013 at 2:30 p.m. The meal and raffle ticket are $20 each. This is hosted by Citizens for Templeton. If you have questions, you want to donate something or tickets, contact David Smart at 978-632-6421 or stop by the Templeton Highway Barn, 978-939-8666. And these 2 town employees are also part of the reason why the sick bank question or discussion for this evening is part of the reason that was brought forward by our town clerk, Carol Harris. The first item we'll discuss is a vote by the board to send a letter of request inquiring the Massachusetts Municipal Association. That's the association that it represents cities and towns to try to put forward things that concern cities and towns, from financial things, tax laws, bills, like Chapter 70, Chapter 90, highway money, all this stuff that comes from the state that helps the cities and towns. And one of the things that's been brought forward by one specific town is school funding, and the cities and towns are under the Proposition 2.5. Our taxes can only go up 2.5% unless you vote to have an override, which increases your taxes on yourself. But the schools are not under those constraints. So a town, you can only raise 2.5%. If a school's budget goes up 2%, you only get 0.5% for the town. And if you factor in, say, and these are just numbers I'm making up, I'm not sure what they are exactly, but if you have inflation of 3%, you're already behind the power curve, and it just keeps multiplying. So there is one idea floating around in the State House of putting the same constraint on school districts and school budgets, that they could only raise or rise by so much. And I believe, and this is something brought forward by Selectman Farrell, that is to not only see where MMA is on this issue, but a few other bills that have been put forward by various state reps, senators, organizations, to try and address this, and even on the federal level, because they seem to all kind of acknowledge that there is like a problem. It's like unsustainable the way the funding goes, but it's an issue that they don't seem to want to deal with. And I believe this is an effort to MMA, an entity that's supposed to look out for cities and towns, to see where they stand on this and if they will state that, and what they're going to do on Beacon Hill to try to move some of these things forward to help cities and towns, either by increase Chapter 70, the state aid to education, or whatever else can be done. I know that the governor, he pushes for, transportation for, trains and the subways and the turnpike and stuff, and education was in there, but it's like education was like a second thought, a second item, and I believe it should be top. If you use, the trains, the buses, you should be willing to pay a little bit more, as, they say taxpayers have to do for education. So on that note, this was brought forward by Selectman Farrell. I'll let her speak a little bit more on this.
On October 17th, the Joint Committee on Education will have a hearing on school finance. They've had a number of hearings already on different bills that have been filed in this legislative session that impact education. This hearing on the 17th, there'll be 25 bills heard about school finance. One of the bills I believe is especially important is reopening a commission to look at the foundation budget. The foundation budget has been a very contentious item in that it does not completely fund what the schools need, what education needs in Massachusetts. And the burden is shifted onto all the cities and towns through the property tax. So by opening up and looking at the calculation at the foundation budget to form a commission, and I personally believe the MMA should have a seat at that table to represent the cities and towns who are affected by their rules and their laws and their decisions. So that's the first one. They will have the hearing, it'll be in room A2. Any member of the public is welcome to go attend and present testimony. I think it's one step toward trying to look at the calculation and look at the funding of education in Massachusetts. Instead of pitting towns and schools against each other, try to find a way that money can be distributed equitably and will not have the devastating impact it has on our community and other communities as well. So what I would like is for the board to consider having this letter sent as a letter from the Board of Selectmen, not just from myself. I think it would have greater weight. The MMA is basically a lobbyist group for municipalities. And I believe, the legislative director is probably the appropriate person to ask for the MMA's position on these different bills that have been filed. So I would make a motion to that effect.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Yeah, all right. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right, the sick bank, change, we're making addition, change to the town's personnel policy. In the general announcement, the two town employees, they work at the highway barn, and they're gonna be out long-term. You quickly use up, your sick leave, your vacation, your personal days. And the town clerk, Carol Harris, came forth and asked, one, if there was a way we could do that, and if there wasn't, if we could make it so. And she wanted to contribute some of her hours to help these employees out. And there are other town employees who have indicated they would do it. I guess there's a few ways to do this. One of them traditionally has been go through the legislature. By the time it gets down to Boston and they get around to talking about it and rubber stamping it, it'll be next year, and that doesn't help the people that we're trying to help right now. Being housed, the select board is now also the personnel board, and also the way the personnel policy and the bylaw is written, things get approved or recommended by the personnel board when it was separate, but it always ended up coming to the Board of Selectmen. So, we could just make a change or amendment to the town's personnel policy that was revised and amended March 14th, 2011. It would be, create a sick leave bank, and this is just a starting point, and we can change this up or down as we see the need to. It would be a sick leave bank established subject to the following terms and conditions. Eligible town employees may contribute up to 24 hours of sick leave per year to the sick leave bank, provided the contribution is made by an employee in good standing who has at least 104 hours of accrued sick leave at the time of the donation. Contributions of accrued sick leave to the bank are non-refundable. Withdrawals from the sick leave bank shall be made at the sole discretion of the Board of Selectmen. They must be requested in writing, shall be immediately applied to the sick leave balance of a named employee who has exhausted their personal vacation and sick leave. So I would look for a motion on this issue, and then to open it up for discussion and either increase the hours or
I will make a motion for this change, this amendment to our personnel policies and procedures.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just to kick it off, 24 hours is arbitrary value. Our town policy gives each employee 3 personal days a year, 24 hours of personal leave. That's the reason we started a draft with 24 hours. There's no magic to that number. There's nothing more to it than what I just said. It could be 5 days, it could be 20 days, it can be a certain number of hours, whatever you want, subject to making sure an employee doesn't zero out their own leave bank.
Yeah, I wouldn't really want somebody to be, I mean, I would understand it being so generous, you know, I'll give you all my sick hours, and then next week or next month, you need sick time, and then it kind of becomes a dog chasing its tail. But I know there are some employees who have indicated they have many hours of sick leave, and they would donate more than the 24. So we could, if we start with this, or any members want to consider increasing it?
I would increase it. I would increase the employee in good standing from 104 hours. I would increase that up to, it's 160 hours? Is that 20 days? Yeah. Okay. Because that's 4 weeks. And then I would increase the 24 hours of sick leave per year. I'm not sure what that number should be.
Make it 40 and make it a full week, or
160 and 160, is that what you want to do?
Up to 104 to 160, and up to 24 to 40.
I think 40 or more, whatever, because they'd still have remaining at least 100 and over 100 hours.
I think the chief has the same.
David?
The only thing I might suggest is we're starting this bank up, and perhaps you could do a one-time opening donation of perhaps 40 hours, so it gets built up, something's put into it. Then after that, the 24 hours a year, we know we have 2 employees that desperately need it. I know I have one in September, I give it up. That would build
No, yeah, no, it's a good idea, because like I said, it's two people, they're on long-term. I didn't want to go the legislative route, which take, forever. And it is, a couple of days is probably not gonna be sufficient for these two. Yes?
Tim Gerard, State Road, of Newtown. I think on this, if you set up, some people have a lot of hours. Last week, somebody said they had 400 hours. Set a limit where they can't go below that, they can give 50% of their hours. But there's a base limit where they can't wipe themselves
So,
out. Let them give 50% of it. Just a thought.
thank you. That's a couple good ideas.
Karen,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted, as long as an employee maintains a certain number of sick hours, why do you need to limit how much they donate?
It was just,
As long as they maintain a healthy number, why would you need to put any number on a limit?
first, it was just a starting point. I didn't, want to come out and say, 80 hours or this many hours. The 50% may be, as long as your 50% will not leave you below X. I think would be a fair, probably the easiest way.
Right. I think we're in agreement in philosophy, it's the wording and how to get there.
Whatever X is.
What's the minimum amount that we're ultimately looking to make sure that they
They
maintain? 3 weeks?
3 weeks is 120?
So it'd be 120 hours?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 weeks would be 120.
So after they make their donation, whatever it may be, they have is 3 weeks considered a healthy?
See, I went 4 weeks, but
4 weeks is,
you just don't know.
right. So it would be after their donation, they would have 4 weeks left.
Okay.
Right.
So,
I just don't want to put anyone at risk.
Oh, right, yeah.
For doing something so generous.
Right, yeah, no, that's understandable.
50% of their hours is, as long as they don't go below.
But in no event shall, right, their total balance go below 160 hours.
Yeah.
160, that'd be 4 weeks of sick leave.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so, you want to amend your motion?
All right, what am I amending it to? Help me out here.
No, is it,
Okay,
would it be eligible town employees may contribute up to half
50%.
of their, 50% of their sick leave,
provided,
I guess the per year would be gone, 50%,
Uh,
provided that in no event
provided a balance of 160 hours
Remain.
remain.
remained by the donating employee.
I will make that motion.
And I will second that motion.
All right. So what we'll do is, what suggests Mary, they'll maintain, as long as they have a balance of 160 hours, which is 4 weeks, they can donate up to 50% of whatever they have. So someone, I remember at I think Bud had said he had 600 something hours. If they want to donate that much, they can. Good suggestions, thank you all. All right, no further discussion. Julie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right. That wasn't so bad. This and this. All right, the last thing, and this was just a thought. I don't know if it's ever been done. I can't recall it being done as long as I've been trying to follow this. I just had a thought that we should have an inventory of all the town's equipment, to include like computers, printers, tools. I mean, big items like trucks and stuff, we have insurance, we know that, but office equipment, at the different departments, like highway, cemetery, how many lawnmowers do they have, their condition, how many sanders do we have, things like that. Just to get a handle, I think, on where we are, what we have, and maybe have like an estimated value, the age on it, conditions. As a starting point, then I think we can look at what we may need to look to be replacing, and that we have an estimated cost. So moving forward, we would have an idea of how much money we should be putting away. And to add on to that, I believe that we should move towards central purchasing. The town coordinator took a course, has the certification, Massachusetts Chief Procurement Officer, and I think we should put that training and certification to use. It's not to micromanage anybody, but, and we've all heard, stories from the federal government, the state government, and even here in the town of Templeton, at the end of the year, buy office furniture, or buy this, buy that. We got $500 left in our office expense. We got 1,000, we got 5,000. Let's go out and buy some stuff before June 30th. And I think that would project to the taxpayers that we actually care, and we're actually trying to keep expenses under control, spend their tax dollars wisely, especially as we're going forward with an override to increase their taxes. I mean, it is to pay a school bill, this increased assessment, and try to give employees their hours back, so their wages go back up to what they were pre-2012. And I just think these are a couple things that we can do as a board to be responsible spending that money, and to show them that we do care, we are looking, and we're trying to stay as conservative as we can spending their money. Yes, things go up, and things have to be replaced. But just like in the military, you need things. You need paper, you need pencils, you need hammers, you need this. You go to supply. You go to one central location. You put a request in. They get it for you. You sign a log, and so at the end of the month, the end of the year, wow, you went through 1,000 cases of copy paper. Where'd that go? Well, this department used this much, this one, this one, this one. So moving forward, where your spending goes and what it goes on, and if they're using a lot of paper, maybe you can look and say, hey, is there a way that we can do things differently to try to put this cost lower? It just keeps, to me, it's better accountability to the taxpayers, and budget-wise, and projecting what you're going to spend. If you don't know what you have, and you don't have an estimate of what you need to spend, it's kind of hard to have a financial plan or a spending plan if you have no idea what you have and what you spend or what you use. In a central place, I think it would be, it's simpler to keep track of all of that. So that's why I put this on, and it was just, I was looking for a vote, if the board so wishes, if you could just send out just an email to all departments to do an inventory of their offices and so forth, and let us know what we have. If you have 4 printers, okay, how old are they? What do you use 4 printers for? And so forth. And maybe they've just bought a new printer and they just kept the old one. Maybe they don't need 4. Maybe they only actually need 2, but they've just kept the older ones rather than, throw them away. It's just, like I said, I don't know if it's been done or when the last time it was done. But it's been suggested by some people in finance, Mr. Dennis is here, the town have a 5-year or 3-year, whatever, a financial plan. And until we know what we have and an idea on what we need to spend moving forward, that's kind of hard to do. And I thought this was a first step to get to that point. So if any member of the board is,
I will make a motion that the Board of Selectmen request that all department heads inventory their equipment and supplies and send that accounting to the town coordinator.
I will second that motion.
any further discussion? Yes,
I guess my question is, with this inventory, is it gonna be on a quarterly basis that you're requiring the department heads to do this? And what is it that you guys are looking to do with this information? I guess I don't quite understand.
it's an inventory to find out what the town has. What do we have for equipment, computers, monitors, how many sanders, tractors, tools, etc. What do we have for inventory?
Okay, who's gonna be policing it, how often are the requesting that it be done? I mean, what's gonna be done with the information?
I think probably a yearly inventory would be good. And as I said, when you look at it, just for an example, if someone said, we got, 4 printers and we got 6 monitors, you just contact the department and ask them, do you use, 4 printers, or, did you just have you replace a printer, you bought a new one, and you just kept the old one? And do you need 2, or do you need 4? If you don't need them, then perhaps it's something, we could have a sale of surplus property. And then how old, their newest one is, and what's the projected, what do you think, you're gonna need to replace that, and, what they cost, and then you kinda have a budget. You gotta replace, you're gonna replace, 4 printers and 5 laptops here in the next, 3 years or whatever. And that's just a number I'm pulling out of my head right this second. But to try to get a handle on what we have, what's the condition, when it was bought, and estimate when we're gonna be replacing this stuff. So we kind of have an idea what we may be needing to spend on office equipment, highway equipment, et cetera. Lawnmowers at the cemetery department. It's just to try to get an idea on what we have and what we will be needing to replace. And if what we have, do we actually need it, or do we have a lot of surplus property out here that departments have kept rather than just, throw away? If they don't actually need it, they've just been, keeping it, then maybe perhaps it's stuff that we could surplus and sell, and then just go from there.
I just assumed that somebody would already be doing that when putting together their yearly budgets.
Yes.
And also the way that the budgets are built with the town is every year you don't start from scratch and think, well, I need, to buy this many toner cartridges and this much. They're built off of the previous year's budget. So the numbers, it is in every department's best interest, because their budget next year will be based on how much they spend this year, that they spend every penny that they have allocated in their budget this year. So that can skew actual costs and expenses, because if as Jeff said, there's $500, and not that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, it just makes it difficult to keep track of what a department's actual expenses are. If there's an extra $1,000 in operating, so you say, well, I'm gonna buy 15 toner cartridges, since we have the money, might as well use them. So, because if we don't spend that $1,000, then when the advisory board looks at our budget, they'll say, oh, well, you spend $1,000 less than you had. We can go ahead and cut your budget, make that cut permanent, and still be level funding you. So by having a centralized list and ultimately moving, I believe is the goal, to centralized purchasing, it allows the town to kind of have more accurate data regarding the actual operating expenses of various departments in terms of supplies and equipment. At least I see it as that.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Just a question. Obviously, happy to do an inventory. We don't want to inventory everything. I'd love a value, $10, $25, $50, $100, of the value of the item that we're, and greater that we're inventorying.
Yeah, because we don't need to be counting pencils, but.
Exactly, we're not gonna count
well, not
individual
at this point.
pencils or paper clips,
Um,
but the question, the devil is very much in the detail, how low is low enough? I think $50 is reasonable, maybe others would say 25, I don't know. 100, it seems a little high.
Yeah. To me, 100 seems high, 25 seems too low, but you run into an issue. We have town offices spread
Right.
throughout the town. So we don't have one central place where everyone, can go to a supply closet and pull things out. So people have traditionally squirreled things away because they know bad times are coming, so they're hoarding their acorns or whatever it is, whether it's printer or ink or paper. And we need to stop doing that. It's not efficient. And a lot of times people keep the ink for printers that they no longer have. I know I work in a school and we switched how we're doing our printing for the whole building. And I've got all of these old ink toner cartridges that cost $80, $90. And that's not efficient, but there was no way to plan for that because I wasn't part of the discussion when the change was made. So I was thinking we were going to keep doing what we had done. So I had to order the ink cartridges or the teachers can't print. And I think that happens to a lesser degree in town government, and that's just with ink cartridges. I know there are other supplies, certain departments need different supplies than others, but I know that, given the economic reality that this town has been under for quite some time, people have squirreled away things, and I think if we do an inventory, we'll get an idea of who has what. So if somebody has a printer and they need a cartridge, maybe the planning board has the cartridge, and they don't even have that kind of printer anymore. It's that kind of information.
So, $50 value?
$50 would do it.
I will amend my motion to add that $50 minimum.
And I will second it.
Okay. All right, we have to vote on that motion.
I can,
Yes.
I think this is already being done for insurance purposes. Have you looked into that with each department?
Like I said, I don't believe this has been done on especially like the office stuff.
I can answer that.
At least not discussed at a public meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
For insurance purposes, all of our rolling stock, if it has wheels on it, we inventory it. But for insurance purposes, we don't inventory computers or printers or file cabinets or desks, all of which have value. So no inventory of fixtures.
All right. Julie?
yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. And that is it for this official Board of Selectmen meeting.
All right, so are we gonna adjourn this meeting?
Yeah. Having completed the agenda for the selectmen's meeting, I would make a motion, entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting and move into the unofficial town hall type meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Julie?
yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right, the selectmen's meeting is adjourned. Now, for the informal town hall meeting, which is basically just to discuss the override that's coming up. And what it's for, and what would happen if it fails. I asked some of the bigger departments, the police, fire, highway, because those departments will actually, will have a number of people getting laid off. The smaller departments, the assistants will go and like the town clerk or the collector or the deputy assessor, their office hours will be, cut. And I chose to have it here because I wasn't sure. I didn't want to have the auditorium and have 10 people show up. That seems kind of so I thought, well, and again, this was kind of a gamble. 150 people would have showed up. Well, I guess we wouldn't be having this. Then the $620,000 figure was arrived at. The school, the town's bill or increased assessment for the school that was voted on August 22nd, $551,000. And then part of the 620, I forget the exact figure, if it was 5 or 6, for
560 was because so much time has passed since the fiscal year
Yeah.
began.
no, there's a small amount to pay for the override,
Oh, yeah,
the ballot question, and the special town meeting. And the remainder is to restore the hours. It's not really a pay raise. They bring the town employees back, give their hours back that they lost in 2012, which equated to a lower paycheck. And at our last selectmen's meeting, that's what the amount that we decided on for some of those of you that were here, after a little discussion. It might have seemed kind of comical, but we started at a number. We went down a little bit, we came up a little bit, and we actually ended up almost in the middle of our minimum 551 and our high of 750. I don't know if this got put on the town's website, and Deputy Assessor is here, but the information, the DOR finally approved our assessment, and $1 added to the tax rate would raise $540,623, which equates that the override amount of $620,000 would add $1.15 to the tax rate. So our tax rate would jump from the 14.12 by that $1.15, which is would come up to $15.27.
You can't do that, Jeff. It's gonna add it 14.12.
Well, yeah, we can.
The 13 tax rate, everything's rough, but 14.12 is the 13
Tax
tax
rate?
rate. We don't know the
Oh, they
14
didn't?
tax
Okay.
rate yet. Okay, it's in Fred's hands now. But whatever it ends up being, the override will be $1.15 more. I can tell you the 15 tax rate will be more than the 14.12.
But they don't have that yet?
We won't have that till Fred does his part of the recap sheet. We usually don't have that until early in December. But at least and it is printed, if you go to I don't know if, Holly put it on the front page, the link on the front page of the website, but if you go to the assessors page, in the upper right-hand corner, it says, news and announcements. There's a link there that you can actually look up your own property and see how much that increase of $1.15 will be on your actual property.
Where is that?
It's on the assessors page.
Can we have, Jeff, could you get a link to the assessors page put
Yeah.
on?
It's been requested, I'll do it first thing in the morning.
Okay, so so Holly would.
So that it'll be right on the home page and people can link off to the data.
Okay. So is this, the average single home of 167,600, is that a good number still?
Yes. But if you go to the actual, to go to the link, you know, I have a copy here, you know, we look up who are you, what's your last name, here, what do we wanna pick on? And you just go across and it tells you what your assessment is for 2014 and how much that 115 will add to your taxes. So it gives you a tax bill, a little bit every year, and then 115 will do that.
Okay, and did I understand you correctly that they can find that out by going to the assessor's website?
Yeah. The link is right there, as long as you know who owns your house, yes.
All right. And that's by just your last name, or is it by the street address?
It goes by whatever is the owner of record of your property, if it's in your husband's name or whoever, and, or if, you know, just remember, if you know, I have to remind some of the older people that they have it in a trust, and they gotta remember the name of the trust, you know. But it's the owner of record is.
Okay,
is
so
how
that
it's
it's
listed.
by your name and
Yeah.
okay, not by the street address. Okay, so since that's, that 167,600 is a good number, then $1.15 more on the tax rate would be $192.76. So if we don't have, it's hard to give people, without doing it individually, can't give a general increase. Chief of Police, are you prepared, or are you gonna have any guys that are gonna come tomorrow if we have?
I have paperwork, you want it now, or you want me to wait?
That would be fine. I was just, you know, I wanted, at one point in time, if it's possible, if they're willing,
Okay.
if some of the officers could come here, so that, I mean, they can stand up and people can put a face to the number.
Yeah. Okay. Could I say something? It's very important for you to remember that we can discuss how the impact, what the impact will be. But as selectmen, we can't use town resources to campaign for the override, okay? I can do that as a private individual on my own time with my own resources, but I can't do it with town resources. So we're having this town meeting forum as an educational event
Right.
to explain what the cuts will be, all right? We have to be very, very careful that we don't cross that line for campaign and political finance, or the town could get in trouble.
And that's why this is not I mean, it was put out there at the last meeting and the webpage as an informational thing, but it's not an official selectmen's meeting. People have been asking for this and asking for the information, and we've been trying to get it to them. And this was one suggestion that was brought up, to have these informal town meetings. Mary?
I just have to make a comment that, you know, I talked to several people today that didn't even know this was happening today and tomorrow night, so, and I know you can't use, you know, I mean, you can't
I
take
know.
an ad out in the paper, but, not everybody looks at the town webpage every day, or, you know, so we need to do something about getting the word out somehow. I don't know how, but.
We'll have to ask, this, because these, let's see, these are the last two dates. We'll have to get in touch with the school. About another date before October. could put something in the home news, I would think. And I can do that. I'll see if we can get something in the home news, or I'll just put an ad in the paper.
We
one
could
of
try
the-
for the 30th. That's another off
off
Monday.
night. Again, we'll have to call the school tomorrow, and
Could we put
And-
signs,
and
signs
put-
around, notices around? I mean, if even some of us knew ahead of time, we could do something about getting the word out.
Where's the flashing sign? What do you have?
yes,
Could you explain the process of procedure should the override fail? Is it an automatic 30% cut across the board, or does the town budget then go back to special meeting where it gets balanced?
ultimately, the taxpayers are the ones who have to vote to move. We as a board, we just, we can't move money around. The taxpayers are ultimately the ones, I mean, we can put forth, we would like to take from here and, move it over here and take from this one and transfer and transfer and transfer. But it's up to the taxpayers, that has the okay and vote yes or no to move that money. Because if the taxpayers say, no, we don't move the money, then, that's why,
So, as an example then, if the override were to fail and the town charges come up at the next special town meeting, if the chief's budget, instead of dropping down by 30%, is going to stay exactly where it is, will the police officers stay?
yes. But, yes.
I just want to say to that, actually, the opposite is a much more likely scenario. All of these proposals that, likely these presentations that we will get will be based on a 30% reduction. But as we've explained, many of our actually the majority number-wise of our departments can't bear a 30% cut because they'd shut down. So if we cut 30% of the assessor's budget, we wouldn't have a full-time assessor anymore, would have to go to a 2-day-a-week kind of thing.
You don't have full-time one now.
Well, that's true. Okay, we'd have to go from 35 hours a week down to, because to cut 30% of their budget, so much of it is almost all of it is salary. That to cut 30% of their budget, same with the tax collector, the treasurer, the highway and police are the two. Well, there's others, not just single them out, but the reason that we constantly single them out is because they are the largest budgets. So we could get rid of the assessor altogether and the treasurer's office and still not be able to come up with $132,000. So while it may seem, if we had other large departments that could be cut, there is the possibility that we could keep the police exactly where they are, not give them any cuts, and just have other non-public safety related departments take the cuts. But the mathematics of it are, it would be, if we got rid of the treasurer, the assessor, completely shut down their offices. Treasurer, assessor, what's the one I'm missing over there? Collector, and accountant. If we closed all of their offices completely, I think would be like at halfway to the amount we need to come up with. So what's more likely is, and at least I think, but again, it's completely up to the town, but just to get the numbers, it's more likely that highway and police will bear a larger percentage of cuts, and cemetery as well, a larger percentage of cuts than will the majority of the other departments number-wise.
Going back to getting the word out, if you follow the local radio stations, WJW, they have a thing periodically where they tell you what's going on in surrounding towns. And for those 10% of us that are still conservative, we might tune into that station once in a while and find out that way.
Good idea. Yes.
I think we should consider trying to do something during the day, like on a Saturday. A lot of the elderly do not drive at night, and it's hard for them to get around. I think that it would make it easier for them to go anywhere in the daytime to understand what's going on. Also, for people that get home so late from work, 6:30, 7 o'clock. So that may be a possibility, a Saturday afternoon for a couple hours there. Would make that, those people make that mistake. And I think they'd show up.
Again, we'll, it's kind of, the school and how they, Saturday. To book these venues. Dave?
Jeff, could I back up the meeting just a little bit and talk about the actual increases from year to year that we've been talking or asking the people to do? And bring into this discussion that the 500,000 for the senior center, people were managing with that 500,000. That's off, and we're looking to replace that. So really, we're not looking at 1 year going from X amount to X amount. We're looking for, if that amount has stayed there, that's not really changing their taxes increase as far as out of their pocket. The whole 620,000 that we're looking for people to come up with. They've already had that 500,000 last year on their tax rate. That was a debt exclusion, not an override, but now, if you ask them for an override for that 620, they think that they're actually gonna be paying that much more on top of that. And if they don't understand that we're only asking for 120,000 on top of last year's rate, I think they easily say, oh, well, that's nothing. I mean, it's not really gonna change the bottom line number that we have to go out and pay if we look at it as though that $500,000 just stayed there. We didn't take it back off and lower your rates like they may think that it is now. When we talk about increasing theirs by $1.15, really you are, but you didn't, because you had that 500,000 in there, which was probably $1 of the $1.15. You're asking for 15 over that. When the real calculator from year to year, that's the bottom.
And Sue, you can help me with this. I'm sorry, but the debt exclusion for the senior center, that was,
In 2012.
right, that was, a debt exclusion is only for a specific amount of time for a specific item, and when that time frame is over, when it's paid for, it comes off, unlike an override that stays forever. But our valuations were a little higher back then, wasn't it?
Right, 2012, our valuations was higher, the tax rate was $14.60 on the thousand. That was with that 500,000 that excluded for the senior center. 2013, 500,000 came off, the tax rate went down to 14.12, and our assessments came down. This year, the only thing that really came down, because you gotta remember, I can only count arm's length sales, can't count any of these short sales and foreclosures and all that stuff. The only things that really came down was my condos.
And that's one thing that I know I've been stopped and asked the question by a few people just being out, is why is $1, why are you talking about $1 only raising, 500 something thousand dollars, when my senior center was 500 and it was only like 50 cents. Or, it was 49 cents my taxes, because it's the valuation that I don't think they understand, or they're either just taking the 1462 and they see the 1412 and but it's the valuation thing that I think that when it lowers to raise the same amount of money, it
Yeah, I
takes
think
more.
if memory serves me right, I think the senior center was 82 cents at that time, because I want to say the valuations at the time was over 600,000. It was $1 raised, 600 something thousand at that time.
So the valuation number can be explained, and the $1.15 will ensure that the link to the assessor's page is on the town website. That information can also be put in a general news ad. That the town will not be paying for. I would pay for that myself. As well as the announcement of a town hall type meeting, and it won't help for tomorrow's, but, if we have at least one or two more, before the 3rd, and like I said, this part of the 620, it's not a pay raise per se. They're getting their 40 hours, their full week back, which does increase their pay, but, I think that needs to get put out and hopefully maybe if we get a newspaper ad out there or some other alternative, get more people here. So they understand that, so they don't think we're just giving pay raises out when the budget is tight. We're actually just trying to restore their hours to maintain, to keep, town employees. Which I believe we're lucky, we only actually lost, I think, one, but, we don't wanna lose any more. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Chief, with the police department, you'd be looking at 5 officers.
There'll be 4 full-time positions right off the bat. We may lose the 5th by the end of the budget year, depending on how the budget cycle ran and everything went through. I would eliminate, I have part-time staff. It's not really people, it's the number that the budget has to work and they do back to it. So we really would eliminate our part-time staff, but we would eliminate a line item for the, I have them work scheduled shifts, keeps them in rotation, keeps them in the loop, keeps them so they know what's going on. That would go away, just because it's money that we have. And we would close. We would not be able to provide 24-hour, 7. This, by reducing us this much, this will allow 2 offices to stay together. We'd have 2 guys working 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the evening, then 2 more would come on from 6 in the evening to 2 o'clock in the morning, and we would close. This also creates some problems within the community also, because what I'll ask the board to do is we'll have to revoke the closing times on all the liquor licenses and change those back to 1 o'clock. We currently have 2 o'clock closing time on our liquor licenses, but we have control of it all night long, so it's not an issue. But if we've got no one out and they're closing at 2 o'clock, we like to have, that's when you have the problems.
Right.
So I would recommend that we would have to do something like that. That's the best, that's the highest call volume for us when we move that clock around. That's the best coverage. Try to provide the best coverage I can for the tax.
For the officers that you would
I
have.
think that's the best way we can make it work.
The highway department, Bud.
Mr. Chair, would you allow me to read this from the back door? I don't have any other copies unless there's a copy machine in the building here. I was not prepared to hand out copies tonight, but tomorrow night we were gonna have some,
Okay, so, currently on the highway department with the 2 guys that are out long-term, how many do you have working?